All right, here's the next installment of how to make your own jumping spider enclosure. That's my bird. She's gonna probably help us a little bit. Anyway, so we've got these containers from Big FAT Phids. The last video, I kind of went over what I like about these containers and why they're so great. One thing I also forgot to mention is if you've got a juvenile spider, jumping spider that is still molting, one really nice thing about these guys is when they go to build their little molting nests up in the corners, sometimes the other containers that you might have, when you go to open them to spray them, you can bump or nudge or rip up the nest that the spider is molting in. With these guys, you don't need to do that at all. You don't even have to open it. You can just spray straight through the vents, which is great. So you don't actually disturb the spider when it's molting. So this is what I started out with. This is a dual vent from Big FAT Phids. Usually I have the tri-vent, which is this one. This is actually Scarlet's little enclosure. The lid is off. She's sunning herself in my window. But for this one, the lid kind of just goes on like this one, goes over it like that. And so it has a third vent up in the top of the lid. So that's what hers looks like. So knowing what I know now with her, and especially with her getting kind of older and slower, and knowing what she needs for her everyday kind of life as it is. So I took that into mind with constructing this enclosure. So you want something that's going to be appropriate for your spider as it's a juvenile, and then all the way through it being an elderly little senior citizen spider. So this is kind of what I would do for it, just to start out with anyway. A lot of people have asked about bringing live plants or plants from outside, things like that, into the enclosures. With the live plants, depending on what kind of plant you have, the plant might need more moisture than what your spider needs. So you need to kind of consider that when you go to put a plant in here. Another thing to consider is that a lot of plants that you would buy in the store have been treated with pesticides, and so you don't want that in your spider's enclosure either. That also goes for things coming from outside. You do not want to put anything, any kind of wild outdoor anything into your spider's enclosure. That includes wild caught food. They carry parasites. They have, insects, repellent or spray poisons on them. They have all kinds of nasties on there. There's no way for you to know for sure what you're bringing into your spider's enclosure if you catch things from outside or bring them in from outside. So you don't want to do that at all. You want to only use food that comes from, reputable sources. Don't go catching things outside and bringing them in. That goes for sticks and stones and all that other stuff. If you have rocks or, like sticks, things like that from outside, I would not go for any kind of plant material from outside. But if you have rocks or pebbles or something, if you wash them really well with hot soap and water, they'd probably be okay. But for me personally, I just don't like taking that chance. So nothing that comes from outside is in these enclosures. They're all bought from pet stores, and actually specifically aquarium and reptile stores. So that's just me. So one thing I added to this that I didn't mention before is this stuff. It's tulle or tulle. It's the stuff that you would make tutus out of. And my friend over at Ophelia the Monster suggested this to me because Scarlet started having trouble clinging to the sides of her enclosure. So I've put this on the sides of her house now, so she has it, and it's actually working really well for her. It's kind of a little webbing, so it just gives them kind of a little extra to grip with, kind of like a little step ladder. I've also heard that blue painter's tape works really well, and you can put those on the sides of your enclosure as well. So knowing that she ended up needing this stuff, as she got older, because what happens is the spiders have little tiny hairs on the bottoms of their feet or their toes or whatever you want to refer to them as. So as they get older, those hairs wear down and they lose their ability to stick to the sides of things, and they'll end up taking a tumble or, you know, slipping off, things like that. So knowing that, I have put this now just from the get-go, because my thinking was that the new spider, as it matures and builds its little nest and stuff, it can just build it straight onto the tool, and then it won't be as disruptive for the webbing patterns on the inside of the container. As your spider grows and you want to clean the enclosure, I personally don't disturb the webs. Your spider is eventually going to run out of the ability to make webbing, and it will not be able to build webs anymore. So they like having their own little beds and their own little webs to cling to and go to sleep in. It's basically their little house. So you don't want to clear those out. There's really not a reason that I've found to clean them out. And this way you can just have them build it. If it's already in there ready to go, you can just have them build it straight over the tool or the blue painter's tape, whichever. And then it just will be in there. The only adhesive that is safe for your spider that I have found to use is hot glue, because it has no scent after it's cured and it's dried. And I also like it because you can kind of pick it off and move things around if you needed to. So if you're going to use an adhesive in your spider's enclosure, the only thing you should be using is hot glue. So these little things on the sides are these. This is from, it was a little bag of aquarium, like plastic plants and stuff, and I just kind of cut them up and added them to the inside of the lid. I kind of added these little fan ones on the sides, kind of like a stepping ladder. You can kind of see it there. So your spider is probably going to be building its webs up in the corners here. And so I left a couple corners clear so that it could do that. And here's like a little hidey corner over there. But like in the last video, I explained that the lids of these containers work really great as catch cups and as feeding little cafeterias. You can take them off and just drop the food in there and feed the spider directly in there. So keeping that in mind, I didn't have anything kind of fall past the edge of the lid. So I can still use that as a catch cup and as a feeding area. So it's still decorated, but it's still clear, so the spider can still go in there and do their thing. So yeah, so one trick that I found with the hot glue, because that was after several burns, my trick for getting the tool to stick down with the hot glue, I would heat up the gun, and then this is just a pair of tweezers. Let me see if I can